Good Shabbos, everyone. Got a beautiful crowd. It's wonderful. We have so many different things going on tonight and tomorrow. Tomorrow, of course, we have our adult B'nai Mitzvah, and those of you who are in special to support your family members, we welcome you to Congregation near Tamid. Our cantor is celebrating a simcha with her best friend, Lizzie Weiss, who's shared our bima before, and she's in Los Angeles. And it's going great, and they're welcoming Lizzie to their congregation. And so she sent me her wonderful friend, Karin Chachman, who I think many of us know because she's been part of our choir and our community. And she is a soprano Israeli doctoral student at UNLV School of Music. And many of us were at UNLV this week to listen to her sing. I think you had to memorize about 2 hours of opera. In how many languages? Four? Four languages. That's a lot. She sang with Israeli Philharmonic Opera, and she has sung throughout the U.S. and Europe. So we're in for a special treat, and we're glad that she is with us. A little bit later on, we'll, of course, have a baby naming for Skylar, and we welcome her family as well. And we also have compelling conversations. So, just a lot going on tonight. We want to make this a warm and Hamisha service, and so we're going to begin with the song Shir Chadash. It is found on page 131. Give her voice lessons. What do you think? Page 120, 121 is the candle lighting prayer. We call upon our Bima guest Pam Poster and Roberta Sabbath to come forward. Where are you, Roberta? There you are. Great.
O source of light and truth, creator of the eternal law of goodness, help us to find knowledge by which to live. Lead us to take the words we shall speak into our hearts and our lives. Bless all who enter the sanctuary in need, all who bring the offerings of their hearts. May our worship lead us to acts of kindness, peace, and love.
And
continue on page 124. We read together, "We enter this sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Weariness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayer." 126. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us and to bring that vision to life. We take a moment to turn to the person next to you or behind you, introduce yourselves, wish them good Shabbos, make a new friend. With your new best friends, you turn to page 142 as we all join together in Shalom Aleichem. Mitzvah class comes forward to lead us in the Chatzi Kaddish. 144.
Yitgadal v'yitgadash Shmei Rava Ve'omad
Adira hirute biamlik malute. V'hayehon uvyomehon uvhayete kol beit Yisrael. Agala, agala, ubizman kariv, v'immeru amen. Yehi shmei rabba mevorach, le'olam le'omaya, yitbarach,
יתברך וישתבח, ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתעשה, ויתהדר ויתהלל, ויתהלל, שמי לקודשה בריחו, לעולם עם כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, תמירה מימיו, v'immeru amen.
We rise for the Baruch Hu. God, you are as near to us as the very air we breathe, yet farther than the farthermost star. We yearn to reach you. We seek the light and warmth of your presence. Though we say you are near, we are lonely and alone. Oh, let our desire be so strong that it will tear the veil that keeps you from our sight. Let your light release our darkness and reveal the glory and joy of your presence. 149. For this is an hour of change. Within it we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai ha'ma'ariv aravim. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
Adonai
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושינתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ושכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם להיות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתיכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
(157). In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. Together, the high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love. From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Inspired by prophets, instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we sing as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. (162).
השבת לעשות
Continue with the tefillah on 164 and 166. Would the congregation please rise? Tradition says, pray as if everything depended on God. Act as if everything depended on you.
Adonai sefatatita ufia kita ilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotei v'Imotzeinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rahel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Ha'gibor v'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, v'Konei Hakol, v'Socher Hasdei Avot v'Imahot, u'Mevi Geulah l'Ibnei B'neihem, Le'ma'an Shemo be'ahava, Melech Ozer u'Mashiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Bezrat Sarah, atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mekayeh Hakol, atah Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiach Baruch u'Mordechai Hashem, Mekayeh Hayim behesed, Mekayeh Hakol berachamim rabim, Somek noflim verofei kolim, Umatir asurim, Umekayeh emunato, Lishenei afar, Mikamoka bal gevurot, Umidomelav, Melech memit, Umekayeh, Umatzmiat Yeshua, Ne'eman atah v'hayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol.
HaKadosh v'Shimcha Kadosh u'Kdoshim b'chol yom yichalucha sela, Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue at our own pace through page 181. At that time, be seated. So we take a moment in our service for a prayer of healing. We think of those in our circle of family and love who are in need of our prayers. And we also think of those who are caregivers who give of themselves tirelessly that their loved ones might be taken care of. And so if there are those of you who would like to say the name or names of people special to you, please stand now and say as many names as you would like to include in your prayers tonight. Now we as a community, we stand in solidarity, arm in arm, as we join together in our Misha Barak prayer. The words we know by heart, or you can find them on 371. We have, I was going to say a baby naming, but it's really a toddler naming. Skylar Nova Wood's Hebrew name is Tova Rishonah. She is named after her great-grandfather, Sheldon Rosen, and her great-great-grandfather, Nathan Dushan. The grandfathers were caring, funny, dedicated, smart, loving, and imaginative. And she brings great joy to her parents, Brittany Rosen and her dad, John Jones. And they hope that Skylar has a great life, is happy, and knows her own self-worth. And so we can't call her Ishkabibble any longer. She needs to have her Jewish name, Tova Rishonah. If you would bring her forward, Brittany and John and great aunt Sharon Rosen and grandma Susan Sanders, Aunt Nikki Rosen, and Uncle Sheldon Rosen. Takes a village. Come on up. The congregation, please rise. So, okay, over here, please. Just like we practiced. So, baby's there, John. You're over here. Okay, and then let everyone see the baby. So, kind of go behind them. Perfect. She's looking at me, not sure what to make. That is a common reaction when people look at me. And so this is a special moment in your life that your mom and grandma and aunt and extended family have been waiting for. It's when, held in your mom's arms and gazed upon by your dad, they bestow upon you a gift of a Jewish name. Tova Rishana, goodness and the first, excellence and good health and well-being. A tie to people who have gone before you so that you might set your own future. And so we pray to God that you will be blessed with this name and that this name will be celebrated in the household of Israel and that you will become a wonderful leader, knowing your faith, knowing your tradition, and knowing the importance of what it means to be Jewish. I'm going to say a few words now of blessing. Here we go. Yevarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha. May the Lord God bless you and keep you. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yikunecha. May the Lord God cause light of his countenance to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Lord God grant you long life, happiness, and peace. Amen. Let's all say amen. And join in singing Siman Tov Mazel Tov. Here we go. Siman Tov Mazel Tov.
Siman Tov Mazal Tov Mazal Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazal Tov Mazal Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazal Tov Mazal Tov Siman Tov Yehelanu 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 Ulechol Israel Yehelanu Yehelanu Ulechol Israel Siman Tov Mazal Tov Mazal Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazal Tov Mazal Tov Siman Tov Siman Tov Mazal Tov Mazal Tov Siman Tov Yehelanu.
Go ahead and give that to Roberta. Just a little bit. All right, good Shabbos, everyone. For those of you who have not seen this program before, this is called Compelling Conversations. And it's something we're trying out new. Instead of a sermon, we decided to have a conversation on the Bima. And we're going to be doing it 4 times throughout the year. This is our second. And our guest hosts this evening is Roberta Sabbath. And Roberta is an English professor at the University of Nevada, and she received her PhD in comparative literature from the University of California, Riverside, and teaches in the English department at UNLV. And her first book publication is the first collection of scholarship of religious texts as literature, Sacred Tropes, Tanakh, New Testament, Quran as literature and culture. In addition, she has published on topics as varied as performance, religion, and literary studies. And her monograph in progress is Remembering the Body, Figures and Judaic Wonder. And a little known fact, before her academic career, she joined Volunteers in Service to America, VISTA, working with Native American children and adults in Kodiak, Alaska. Now, how many of you learned something new about Roberta, because we've known her a long time? All right, is there a big bear in your home? A Kodiak bear? No. All right, so we're going to give this a try, and I'm going to take my place, and then try to have a compelling conversation. We'll see how it goes.
Can you hear me, Rabbi?
1, 2, 3. Sam? Oh, we got the sound. All right.
So, Rabbi, why did you decide to do this?
Why did I decide to do this? You mean the compelling conversations?
Right. Don't you get to talk enough?
Well, that's good. Well, some would say more than enough.
Seriously.
But what I found is, despite the fact that I've been here, believe it or not, almost 30 years, most people get a snippet of my time. They see me in the oneg, and they begin a conversation, and then just when we start getting into our conversation, there's another person lined up. And then I'm going, well, what should I do? And if I say to them, why don't you call my secretary and we'll go have coffee, invariably they always think, oh, he's putting me off. But I'm not. It's, you know, it's a lot of short oneg conversations, but nothing that's in deep. So hopefully people get to know me better even after 30 years. Not that I was part of Vista, but we'll see how the conversations go. So that's why I decided to do it, something new and different.
I think tonight you had the idea of talking about Chrismica. It's a difficult time of year for many families, and yet I look at who's here, the generations, the love in this room, and it's hard to imagine that there may be struggles.
So a few years ago, when Hanukkah was very early, we had Thanksgivika, right? Who remembers Thanksgivika? All right. But what did it mean other than the fact that Thanksgiving and Hanukkah kind of fell together and we didn't know what to do in it, and we don't remember ever seeing that before? But there are many times when we do know that Hanukkah and Christmas overlap, or if they don't overlap, they're always at the same season. And so we know the term Chrismica as kind of the December dilemma. But I wanted to put a different spin, pun intended, on the term this evening, on what I really think Chrismica has morphed into. And that is, do you want to know? All right, I just wanted to see if you were compelled. Well, going back in time, right after World War II, that's when all kinds of things happened. We had television, we had the GIs returning, and Christmas became a big deal, right? If you talk to people who are much older, Christmas was never a big deal. They had the service, they had homemade gifts, and Hanukkah had homemade gifts, and a little bit of gelt. Is there anyone here who remembers Hanukkah as a minor holiday with a little bit of gelt? Yeah, just a few things. Then, going into the 1960s, all of a sudden the Jewish parents began to worry that maybe their kids were feeling deprived or left out. So what did they do? We had 8 crazy nights, right? And then you would get these presents, one for every night, and then a big present. How many of you grew up with that tradition? All right, well, all right. So that's how I grew up. But now we have Chrismica, and it's a different animal altogether. Because we went from one faith, and then as things progressed, people started intermarrying, and we went to interfaith, which meant that they basically chose one religion. And now we have people inventing their own stuff. They have more than one religion in their family, For how many of you is that true? Yeah, look around. And the rest who didn't raise their hands are probably too shy. Because if you think about it, many of us have many people in our immediate family or in our extended family that are of different religions. So we have Chrismukkah. We kind of morph them. And what does it look like? And that's really what I want to talk about tonight.
Rabbi, how many marriages have you officiated at?
I thought you were going to say, how many times have you been married?
Gotcha.
How many weddings have I done? Well, I don't know. Probably 600.
So you have some wisdom, I suspect, to give us about these marriages that are so different in the 21st century, as you suggest.
I
There's a
have wisdom for the first 15 minutes of their marriage, because that's when I do the ceremony. After that, what do I know? But no, seriously. I have a little bit of insight on how things have changed. And I just kind of briefly described it, where for a long time people wanted to have one faith. And that's what the rabbis promoted, and that's what I've talked about. But now people really struggle. And the struggle is not just, well, how do I make my Jewish child feel special in the light of Christmas? It's, what do I do in my own family? There's more than one religious tradition. How do we balance that out? How are we fair? How do we make everyone feel celebrated and important? And that's really the dilemma that's going on now.
That begs the question, Rabbi.
Yes.
How?
How?
You must have a suggestion.
I have
More than
notions.
one
I have notions, ideas.
Would you like to share?
Well, for me, it's one of these things where you scratch your heads. Because when people want to be fair, they think that the universe will cooperate. That means they'll find a rabbi who will do a bris and a priest who will do a baptism, that they'll do Passover and they'll do Easter, and that each side will get their holidays. And perhaps they'll find liberal clergy who will do that, but so often the universe doesn't cooperate, and the religious leaders try to uphold the religious values, and so they go off on their own. And that parallels the phenomenon where more and more people are going off on their own.
You mean the individual in the family?
I mean, the next generation, many of them are not affiliated in organized religion.
Okay.
And therefore, rather than going to a rabbi or a priest or a minister for advice, they go, you know what, we're going to do our own thing because we're really only cultural. We're not religious. So I won't even say it's a suggestion, I'm kind of describing what is. One family might have a Christmas tree and a menorah, where in the old days, they would probably just either have a Christmas tree or a menorah. Sometimes you might find, quote, a Hanukkah bush. Did anyone ever grow up with a Hanukkah bush? Yeah, but it was really probably two Jewish people who really wanted a Christmas tree but couldn't bear the thought of having a Christmas tree, so they called it a Hanukkah bush. So I personally think it's important to have one faith tradition, but I'm talking about the reality of what's out there, and that more and more families are choosing to have more than one faith tradition celebrated in a family. And I think it's a delicate balance, and Jews are a minority, and the majority culture, which is not Jewish, usually trumps. And the children will therefore probably choose Christianity. So I think for those people who really care about Jewish identity, Jewish survival, it's important to take Hanukkah as an opportunity for Jewish pride and culture. It never was a major holiday, but it is what it is now, and therefore it's an opportunity to express our pride in being Jewish. And that's really at the heart of the message of Hanukkah.
If it's down to the choices we make as individuals, Rabbi, what is it about our Jewish faith in your Rabbi Sanford Axelrod heart that says we have so much to give? This is what we can give to the rest of the world.
So I think lying behind that question is the general notion that all religions are alike. I mean, If you're a good Jew, or you're a good Christian, or you're a good Buddhist, you're a good person. So religion tears people apart. It just makes things more complicated. And if I believe that, of course, I couldn't be a rabbi. People may make things more complicated, but Judaism has a very specific message to offer the world, and that vision and that message shapes our journey. So often I'll tell people, you want to get from here to Los Angeles, you can take a train, a bus, an airplane, you can walk, you can take a car. You will end up in Los Angeles, but your journey will be vastly different depending upon your mode of transportation. Judaism is, quote, our mode of transportation in our life journey. And so we value tikkun olam, that we are involved in the world, and that the world is broken, and we have to be partners with God. We have holidays and holy days that are very different than others that celebrate the historic experience of our people and our sacred obligations to God. We have values that other religions have built upon. Islam and Christianity are built upon Judaism. We have a way of life that maybe we struggle as non-Orthodox Jews to maintain, but in making that struggle a reality, it means that Judaism is relevant to who we are. And we have a sense of pride in who we are. And the real mitzvah of Hanukkah is called Pirsum Mitzvah. A lot of people will take their menorah and they'll place it on their table. But that's not the actual commandment. It's to place it in the windowsill. And the reason it went from the windowsill to inside was because of anti-Semitism. People were afraid to express their Jewishness publicly, so it went inside. But we who live today should be proud, and therefore you have the phenomenon of public menorah lighting, so that we can gather and say, we are proud to be a Jew, and that's a very American phenomenon. But it also is at the heart of the mitzvah, to express our pride in being Jewish. Pirsum mitzvah means to publicize the mitzvah and say, I'm proud to be a Jew. And so I think that's the heart of Hanukkah. And
So you're saying that how we as individuals choose to be Jews can carry a message to our children and our grandchildren and our families, the better Jews we are as individuals.
exactly.
The more we can give.
But even more to the point, not choosing is a choice. So some people choose not to do anything because they have more than one religious tradition, or they confuse the kids by trying to make up a pseudo collection of religious traditions, or they don't know enough themselves, so maybe they know enough to make latkes and have dreidels, and that's it. But those little items aren't enough to ensure the vitality of the religion and the holiday celebration. So I'm encouraging people to learn more and to do more about what it means to be Jewish.
Thus, the events you have this spring, it sounds like how we can become better Jews to feel more
That's the
comfortable.
function of the synagogue, is to constantly offer programs to train to teach not just the children, but the parents on what it means to be Jewish.
And before we end, I know you have mentioned that you are seeing a new trend. You had said it used to be that when a couple would get married, there would be one person who favored the religion. That would be what the couple ultimately would decide how to raise their children, and the wife typically would convert to Judaism. But you're seeing a different kind of convert now that maybe some folks here, I didn't realize this.
Well, when I began my career way back in 1984, you still had Bridget Loves Bernie. So Bernie was Jewish and Bridget wasn't, and she would convert for Bernie's sake. And the conversion classes were really made up of Jewish men marrying non-Jewish women, and that's what they looked like. But the social pressure of the non-Orthodox community has diminished to such an extent that intermarriage is probably about 60%. And the notion that you have to convert for the sake of marriage is really diminished. In 1960, the intermarriage rate was less than 5%. So you can see that in a very short period of time, it's changed. And therefore, people come to conversion for many different reasons, but they are usually purely personal. And so these are people who are not getting married. They're usually single, or perhaps they've been married to a Jewish person for decades, and now they've made a personal decision that they want to convert. And it's beautiful to see and beautiful to celebrate. Not that converting for the sake of marriage was wrong, but now you see people coming to Judaism on their own, from their own study.
Rabbi,
That's
in
what's going on.
the last couple of minutes we have, is there something you want to add that we haven't touched upon?
I want to just remind people who happen to be grandparents that your role in helping to negotiate Chrismukkah cannot be understated. Something about this generation is that they don't always have a facility with Jewish customs and traditions the way we might like. When you ask them about latkes, or you ask them about the Seder, they almost always talk about what their parents did or their grandparents did. But they don't necessarily know how to do it themselves. Teach them, enable them. Make sure they know the cooking recipes, make sure they know how to make the decorations, make sure that they own the holidays. As much as you as a grandparent want to be that source of wisdom and feel needed and important, you are. But do it hand in hand with a grandchild or a child so that that tradition is passed on in a way that Jewish continuity is ensured. That really is ultimately what the story of Hanukkah is all about, is it not? It was a fight for religious tradition, and it was also a statement that at a time when being Jewish meant facing oppression, and they fought a battle for years, that they could say, I am Jewish, and I want to practice that legally. And we recaptured the temple in Jerusalem and lit that candle. And you say, well, it wasn't much of a miracle. It stayed lit for 8 days. Well, the real miracle was that they fought that war and that they were outnumbered, and yet they believed their faith was so strong that they didn't want that light to go out. And that it has to stay lit within each one of us. Each one of us is a candle. And guess what? When one candle lights another, the light only grows brighter, and that light, the original light, is not diminished. So happy Hanukkah, everybody.
Happy Hanukkah, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you for
What a way
being a
to
part of this.
end.
Thank you, Roberta, very,
Thank
very
you so
much.
much,
Let's
Rabbi.
give her our Ner Tamid little wave applause. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
Oop, you gotta turn this off.
Take care.
Okay, you got- You gotta move the chair just a little bit. We're going to rise for the Aleinu. You guys know Aleinu? 586. Kaddish prayers on 598. We think of those who have died in recent days: Marilyn Lvcnt, Avi Feldman, Michael Zone, Bob Watman, Gail Seltzer, Edward Dolly, Anna Green, Brian Polavina, and Mike Ensign. And we recall those whose yahrzeit are observed: Artie Berger, Ruth Bloom, Charles Charnas, Regina Sharon, Albert Cohen, Sidney Cohen, Nancy Collin, Valerie Corbin, Harold Buddy Darling, Martin Eisenhart, Joseph Elbinger, Adele Epstein, Minnie Etkin, Stanley Freeman, Jack Garov, Sadie Harris, David Kerbin, Charlotte Kishner, Lena Cranston, Coleman Lehrman, Sina Lubcher, Charles Maurer, Ida Malinsky, Sarah Schiffman, Fanny C. Schreiman, Molly Selnick, Rivka Sendro, Sarah Sendro, Hyman Silver, Yoav Tamir, Terry Tobman, Ruben Weinstock, Alice White, Eric Wolf, and Leon Yanofsky. If you'd like to say the name of someone who is not mentioned, please stand and say their name. Is there anyone? Please. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. As we think of all these and others who have touched our hearts, we rise to recite our Kaddish. Yit Gadal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah B'alma Divrach Hirutei v'yamlich Malchutei B'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayedechol be'Yisrael Magalav Ezman Kari v'yamru Amen Yeheshmei Rabbah Mevorach Le'olam Omei Almaya Yit Barach v'yishtabach v'yit Pa'ar v'yit Ramam v'yit Naseh V'yit Adar v'yit Taleh v'yit Talal Shmei Dekusha Brichu Le'ela Min Kol Birchata v'Shirata Tush Bechata v'Nechemata Damiram v'Alma v'Yamru Amen Yeheshlomo Rabba min Shammai v'Chaim Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Yamru Amen Osei Shalom b'Mramav Hu Ya'aseh Shalom Aleinu v'Al Kol Yisrael v'Yamru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us and to all Israel, to which we say, Amen. You may be seated. In a few moments, we will conclude our service, and we have a beautiful Oneg Shabbat celebrating all the various simchas that we have. And we want to express our gratitude to Sam, our sound guy, right? Sam and Ricky, and of course to our guest soloist, Corinne. Thank you so very, very much. Where is she? Is she behind me? Thank you very much. Isn't that beautiful? This is her first time she led services. She sang all over the world, but now she has sung in a synagogue. So mazal tov to you. And this is a special mitzvah and blessing for us. We'd like to invite our adult B'nai Mitzvah class to come lead us in the Kiddush and Motzi. So please come on. And just a gentle reminder, what time our service is next week? 6:15. All right, 6:15. And then you should make your reservations for the pre-Hanukkah dinner. All right, so make your reservations. Don't wait, call. And dinner will follow immediately after services next week. So we'd like you to sign up and register. All right. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Our final song is Oseh Shalom. I'd like to invite up the family members of our B'nai Mitzvah to join them. And we'll stand at the center of the bima. Let's all rise and join in Oseh Shalom. Corinne, that's your cue. Okay.
Good Shabbos.
We did it. We did it. You did so good. Yay.
Rabbi, thank you so much. It was great tonight.
So, are we doing photos like at 9 tomorrow?
I think the person who was originally
Is that what you guys were told?
Yeah.